Well, welcome to May 2020 meeting of the Southwest CyberSec Forum. So we're excited to have David Gold of SentinelOne, followed by Chris Pavin of the Helios Group presenting tonight. So we'll get to them here shortly. So David is joining us from Minnesota and going to talk about the code-on-code warfare. So how human response is getting pushed out of the attack chain. So this is something I think we've seen coming for a long time, but it's happening right now. We're there. So, and what this means to organizations in our cyber defense posture. So I think that's going to be a great presentation. After that, Chris will walk through a real world scenario of trying to navigate the complexities involved in performing digital forensics for an actual child exploitation case. So some nitty gritty stuff, and is going to get into some hard lessons learned there. So that's going to be pretty compelling. So our sponsor this month is SentinelOne. So SentinelOne is a strong player in endpoint detection and response and making great inroads on the enterprise space, as well as SMB markets. So excited to have them here. So Shaq Misra, we'll talk more about that here shortly. And for what it's worth, just show everybody, I'm a big SentinelOne fan myself, run it on all of our computers and our clients. So very pro SentinelOne. All right, so you can see my PowerPoint. So any people that are new to the group, because just a few overviews. So we meet the first Monday of every month, today obviously, excluding Labor Day. So that's 11 months a year. And with 2 presentations, that's 22 presentations. And we have about 4,200 people on the active members list. So, and the group is run by Arizona InfraGard members, including myself. And 2 meetings a year are dedicated to the federal law enforcement. So we're proud of our affiliation and longstanding cooperation with the Phoenix FBI Cybersecurity Task Force. And they'll actually be presenting next month, so look for that. And as stated, meetings are worth 3 hours of CPE credits. So if those are important to you or your organization, there's details on the website for that. So we'll be meeting virtually for the foreseeable future, given the COVID-19. When we do meet again, we hope to take what we learned here and maintain a physical and virtual presence. So we've been posting regularly on YouTube, so most of our content's there for anyone to view. And then just a second or two, we're playing with ideas on future topics. So here's kind of what we've got lined up. We're going to send these out in a survey, an email with a few other things. So we're looking for feedback from the group on what interests you and what we can do better. So we mentioned next month we'll have Paul Schaff and perhaps some other gentlemen, people from the federal law enforcement. And just a note, I'm curious, I got a call a few weeks ago from the gentleman with the ISACA in Houston, Texas. And they mentioned that we're on their radar and they're actually hoping to join the presentation. So I don't know if they want to announce themselves in the chat, but we might have some new members that are joining. So just out of curiosity, how many people do we have from out of state? If you feel comfortable announcing yourself in chat, I'd be curious to see.
I am right now.
Terrific.
Hey, this is Alex from Arizona.
All right. Hey, Alex. And so with that, I guess we'll jump into the sponsor segment, and then we'll see if Eric Graham is going to be available after that. I know he's got some work-related things that are keeping him.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to do the presentation. I see a lot of people on here, and John, it's very impressive. My name is Shaq Misra. I'm the Enterprise Account Manager at SentinelOne. I'm based in Phoenix, so for those of you that are local, hopefully we get a chance to meet face-to-face soon. Also with me, I've got my partner in crime that should be on the call, Stuart Avery. He's the brains behind the operations. He's local as well. And we've also got Dave Gold. So Dave Gold, will be doing the interesting part of one of the presentations in a little while here. I've got the vendor plugin. I hope to make it interesting. I think I've got 15 minutes. John, I'll try to keep it under that. And hopefully we have some time for Q&A at the end. So just for the agenda, what I thought we would start off with is talk about who we are. And by who we are, I don't mean give you the product pitch, company pitch, but I think most of you may not know, you know, our kind of vision and our strategies. We thought we'd start there. You heard John talk about it. So we'll talk about that, briefly touch upon what we cover, talk about our vigilance service, and then give you an overview into company and what we've done so far, and hopefully leave some time at the end for Q&A. So storyline and active EDR is one thing we talk about quite a bit. And you know, essentially when we look at every single device that we're trying to manage, it's got a set of stories. And most of the stories are kind of benign, but some are not. And SentinelOne differentiates amongst these thousands of stories in real time in every single device. And essentially what we're trying to do is trying to look for the rich set of context within the process where we can tie these together. So, you know, just as we're seeing multiple adversaries using many different ways to try to bulldoze through the different kind of defenses that we have, what we've seen is old school antivirus EDR systems are simply too slow. They're not able to do the job at hand. And essentially what we've got is, you know, attack kind of velocity problem. So SentinelOne, you know, is really looking to solve that attack problem with our storyline and active EDR. And what we're trying to do is trying to imagine this related set of processes, either good or bad, as a thread or a storyline. So we're tracking every single thread in the story as it kind of unfolds. This is done in real time at the endpoint, and we're trying to maintain all of these processes throughout the story's life, right? So that context becomes that super glue that goes on throughout the kind of platform. And as that storyline tracks code in real time, we apply ML-based behavior to do scoring on these different events, right? So in this case, we're trying to see a storyline that's beginning to form, right? And there's some evil that's actually happening. And active EDR has actually kind of determined that this story has to be stopped because it's exceeding the bounds of what the agent thinks is normal or proper kind of behavior. And we'll get into this a little bit more. But as this story goes on, the storyline inherently tracks root cause from beginning through what's happening right now, right? And surgically tries to remove and keep normal operations going. So the storyline and active EDR are the core to our platform, as we've talked about. And our platform covers Windows, Mac, Linux, many different platforms. And the endpoint agent itself mitigates attacks in moments, right? Which is far faster than any cloud analytics or human-based product could ever hope for. So when we talk about the actual platform, we started off as a endpoint, you know, kind of EPP product that was, you know, driven by kind of AI. And kind of over the years, this has morphed into endpoint, you know, kind of EDR. We've added a lot more capability around, you know, kind of IoT, now evolving into an XDR platform with a rich data lake that's totally mineable, and it's also exportable to other data lakes. We recently announced a threat intel platform. So, you know, essentially what we're doing is trying to create kind of integrations in terms of all the rich data that we're seeing on the endpoint with some of the other platforms or tools that, that you might see out there, whether it's SIM, whether it's SOAR, whether it's firewalls, and trying to give you more context with that data. So as we talk about some of the other pieces of this platform, core is one of our basic pieces. And when you talk about core, what we're looking to do is on the agent side tech, we're trying to unify prevention, detection, and kind of response. We talk about the autonomous code, and what we talk about here is the agent has enough intelligence to really operate, whether it's online or offline. So, and that's extremely important when you think about people traveling and devices traveling with them, right? So you may reasonably have people that are not online at all times. So no matter where that device is, that server is, whether it's on the internet, the agent evaluates the attack and automatically responds in real time to take care of that. So in terms of recovering the endpoint, let's say you've got a device that was attacked and active EDR did the automatic kill as we talked about. How do you recover, right? You know, So from this standpoint, what we're looking to do is how we differentiate ourselves is, as we talked about with Storyline, we're tracking the context in every single device and every single box. And therefore, the box knows what to undo before that, taking your box back to the pre-attack storyline, that baseline, right? And unlike some of the other products, we've got remediation and rollback that could be totally automatic, or you could do it with one click. We can do some other cool things like trying to isolate that device, give you the capability to actually triage that device. And in the case of rollback, we've got the ability to take you back to the last known good state. We can talk about this in more detail at a point where if you want to see a demo, it makes more sense. But instead of having to re-image the device and do all the kind of operational work, it saves you time and headache, right? It makes it super easy. So the next piece of this is, and this is all kind of additive. Control then adds some important functions on top of core that give you the ability to take care of your local firewall policy, your USB, your Bluetooth hardware, patching alerts, also give you remote shell. So it's the same agent as core that we talked about. You're just adding on top of it. And then we have EDR. So EDR is, again, the exact same agent. And instead of giving you too many alerts or giving you, a lot of different data, what we're trying to do is make that SOC analyst's life simpler, if you will, right? Where we're trying to provide actionable data. We're trying to give EDR visibility across different platforms. By default, we provide 30 days of historical EDR data, and you can add on to that at a very nominal cost. But essentially what it does, it gives you the ability to pivot and kind of act on that data. Deep visibility also provides the ability to map all this back to the MITRE attack framework. So if you guys have been looking, kind of APT 29 was recently launched, I want to say 2 weeks ago. So, if you guys follow MITRE, at every step we can show you how it maps back to MITRE. All right, so the underlying, kind of technology, as you look at how we work, we've got several different engines. So when you look at real-time kind of prevention, we've got the real-time file analysis, right? And this is really table stakes when you're talking about endpoint. We also have the active EDR that we talked about a little bit, right? And this is where the secret sauce starts to come in. Then we give you the ability to automatically kind of remediate, and there's many different actions you can take as part of that, from isolation to cleanup to rollback, trying to disconnect from the network. And finally, we give you the ability to do hunting, right? And that hunting with context, essentially just throwing a bunch of data at you, kind of rather than doing that, we're giving you more context, if you will. So Vigilance MDR is an add-on service to some of the pieces of the platform we just talked about. And what Vigilance does is think of it as a SOC for the desktop, a SOC assist. It's the human element, human service to the product that we just talked about. And unlike some vendors that require you to purchase MDR and it's tied back to efficacy, in our case, it's truly an add-on. It does make it very nice if you don't have the manpower or if you have a larger environment. It makes it a lot more effective. So we're at the very end of the presentation. I said I would say a little bit about who we are, what we do at the end. So global architecture that supports folks from kind of around the world. As you can see, we've been in business for about 7 years. We were founded in 2013, rapidly grown at that pace. As you guys know, this is not a space that we invented. So this has been at the cost of legacy players that have been around for a long time, right? Household names that we know, some next-gen players as well. So quickly scaled up to 500 plus employees, funded really well, and then we've got a global team across the globe. And then in terms of validation, we've been a Gartner Visionary for 3 times in a row. We've also been acknowledged by Forrester and some of the other third-party firms. We've got 4 of the 10 Fortune 10s, and we work with many different leaders in many different industries. So that is all I had, John.
Awesome. Well,
Any questions? Should I take a look at chat real quick?
yeah, I don't see too much there, but I've got one. Can you talk about how you integrate with third parties as far as log ingestion, analysis, and a larger SIM that maybe wants to incorporate your data and intelligence in their data lake?
Absolutely, yeah. So let me take a stab at that, and then I'll also invite Stuart and Dave to jump in. So really, when you look at an endpoint vendor, I think there's two different ways to look at things, right? There's a way to look at it where you go, hey, I'm truly a platform player where I do everything, right? In our case, we talk about the kind of singular, our kind of platforms we talked about, but we're still focused specifically on endpoint detection and response, right? We're looking at EPP, we're looking at EDR, there's a data lake, there's many other things that we don't do. There's larger players that do it all, right? And, kind of arguably, they're not offering best of breed offerings in every single space because you can't. So the approach we take is it makes sense to then integrate with many different folks. So you talked about SIM, you talked about SOAR or firewall. And the way we do it is we have open APIs, right? In some cases, there's a tighter integration both ways. But in every single case, we've got open APIs. They're based on REST APIs. And there's documented API framework with some of the larger manufacturers. In other cases where it makes sense, we're willing to work with people and try to better understand the use case. Dave or Stuart, do you guys want to add on to that?
Yeah, hey, Shaq, Dave here. Yeah, I think you nailed it. But it's that integration first mentality, right? Our entire platform, it's a cloud delivered platform. It's all built on top of APIs for our own product. And we open those APIs to our customers to be able to, stream things out. So, some examples might be our Splunk app that can pull details in, or Phantom or Demisto with a SOAR technology to kind of integrate with lots of other tools. We also have a direct integration for larger customers that maybe have their own data lakes. We actually can use, Kinesis and Kafka to essentially pull data out of our data lake into their data lake. So, when I think of data lakes, it's there's a lot of vendors trying to be the data lake for everything. But at the end of the day, I think most customers are going to want to, maybe it's because I'm in Minnesota and we have a lot of lakes here. But I think the reality is most customers are going to have lots of data lakes. And so it's how do my data lakes work together to optimize my workflows and ways of accessing that data versus saying all my data needs to be in one data lake. If that makes sense. And I guess your question too, John, was around getting stuff into other SIMs too. So if you don't want to pull over the APIs, we can also do things like syslog over encrypted channels from the cloud and that sort of thing as well. But we support a lot of custom log formats and can integrate with almost every major SIM that's out there.
Awesome. Thank you. That answers my question. And something on my to-do list this quarter was to get your logs into our SIM. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Please do. If there's nothing else, I'll stop sharing. But thank you again for the time. We really appreciate the opportunity to sponsor and talk to you guys. I think the number of attendees has actually gone up since I first started talking. So I think we're at 78 now.
78,
really appreciate
yeah.
the time, and yeah, that's a record number. And if you can, please stick around for Dave Gould's piece. I think you'll really enjoy what he has to talk about as well.
Yes, we'll be doing that shortly. So Jerry, we got a few minutes if you want to go through some announcements there.
One slide is all I've got. This is a meeting that's been scheduled for a long time, and it was scheduled for 2 weeks from tomorrow. But I don't know if it's going to happen or not, and I couldn't contact anybody today to find out. I'm on the board, which is I'm embarrassed to admit, of this organization, but obviously it was scheduled to be at SkySong. It's obviously not going to actually take place physically, but we might have a virtual meeting using Zoom. So if you go out to csasouthwest.org, track it if you're interested. We usually have very, very nice and very cogent and relevant contemporary speakers at our Cloud Security Alliance meetings.